Hello, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danya Williams. How are you today? Form. It's different. I don't know about you guys, but it's different. I'm not used to it, but I'm gonna try it. It's called Wave Video, Wave Dot Video, and this is definitely a new platform. Is giving us it's given us a lot of different things that we can do. So we are able to welcome a whole new set of guests. We're welcoming LinkedIn Live. And we're happy to welcome the LinkedIn Live family. Now, I want to let them all know they cannot comment. And if they want to comment, they can definitely go to our Facebook page to comment and to our YouTube to comment. But they can watch us. They can watch us right now. And this is the first time. So, welcome to our LinkedIn Live guests. We still have our live chats. We still are able to put all of that information up there. So, welcome to our regular family members. We're happy to see you guys. And but overall, welcome to all of you. So we have a
Yes, and
great
as always, welcome, as always, and spending the next hour with us, however you tune in and wherever you're watching us.
yes. So we have a great show lined up for you all today. We're going to talk about reference libraries, and in doing that, and she is not showing up for some reason. Her picture is not showing up, and I don't know why. It is so weird.
Well,
That
we are having a few little technical hitches. Getting Whitney online.
yeah, her. I don't know why her face is not showing up. That is so weird,
Yeah, she just sent me a text to say that she can't hear or see us.
and
Um,
I don't know why.
okay, I'll have her. I'll do the usual. Turn her laptop off, and
And
just
started, yeah,
yeah.
restart to give her a restart. But while she's doing the restart, because I have her picture up here. I put it up and it's not. So I want to apologize to everyone right now because, like I said, this is a new platform and we are learning it, and you are gonna ride along with us because I know we have our regular ride or dies with us. So we want to apologize for all of this.
Mhm.
Right off the
So
break.
we will be working to get Whitney with us. But one of the reasons why I was really keen to cover this show, and Donnie and I chatting about it, is we have had a reference librarian on the show previously, but that was someone who had been working for a long established research library. So the kind of window into this one is what it's like to set up a research library pretty much from scratch. Um, at the International African American Museum in Charleston, we were really blessed to, this is before I even signed on, to have James Morgan. He was a person who initially, got the first set of books in, had done a wonderful job kind of cataloging them in spreadsheets. And when his contract ended, the kind of onus for bringing the library to fruition fell on Whitney. And I'm not a research librarian. You know, I'm got my skills. I've got my genealogy chops, but I'm always honest about what I don't know. I was even honest about that in my interview with the museum. I don't come from a research librarian kind of background, although I have used them. Um, and I know what the experience has been like as an end user. And I believe you've used them as well, haven't you, Danya? Research
Well, yeah,
libraries.
and then we also, Sharon is our own one of our researchers is was a reference librarian too. Sharon, she
Hmm.
did that all the time. So we've worked with them as well. What did she say?
Okay. See you soon.
So But I want to say hi to everybody while we're trying to get Whitney on. Let me just give you a brief description. Let me tell you what she does. Her bio. Whitney is a research assistant at the Center for Family History at the International African American Museum in Charleston. She joined in 2023. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in history with a minor in anthropology. She worked as a historical interpreter at Colonial Williamsburg while she was at the university. She worked as part of an IAAM genealogy research team that had its work broadcast on CNN and NBC's Today Show. She's also been busy working toward launching the museum's reference library, which will be open to the public in early 2024. So good when she gets on, we're gonna hop right into her work and what it is that she's doing and how she's getting everything done. And yes, Brian, make sure she's using Chrome because remember, Chrome is the best thing. Um, Thank you, Shelly, for saying that because Chrome works best with Wave.
God, I'm sending that now.
So make sure she's on Chrome. But guys, this is different. Wave.video, this is definitely different for us. It gives you all of the little bells and whistles, the crowd saying yay and all of that other stuff.
Okay, so she's joining in. She's joining in now.
And
Gotta
Hello.
love,
and there's hey Whitney.
you gotta love when it fails right when you need it the most.
Okay, right when you need it the most, it just shuts on down. But that's okay. I've already introduced you to everybody. So we're going to jump right on in on who you are. I'm going to get Brian to ask those questions and we're going to go ahead. He's going to start everything off asking those questions and I'm going to go ahead and share this stuff with people so we can get started.
Okay. So let's start at the very beginning. Because one of the other reasons why I'm really excited, and Donnie is really excited to have you on the show, is we don't often have guests who are under the age of 30. So it's always nice to kind of bring that perspective to the fields, into the practice. And if you don't mind sharing with the audience, how did you get involved in genealogy and what was it that, because you were primarily a genealogist first, and what was it that hooked you about it?
Yeah, so let's see, been doing genealogy for about 12 years now. I started around the age of 12, and it just had family members do it all the time, and it was just a big thing in like my family and my church community. So that's like I just kind of started doing it that way and doing it off and on throughout a couple of years, and then as I kind of moved out through like middle school and high school and getting to what I want to do, I really got into research and pulling in and doing like history research inside of that. So there was always like a connection with it. So I've been doing it around for then. It's just because I just love the researching and finding stories that were never told or finding something that like I didn't know beforehand, whether it was with my own ancestry or just something random. I always found it very interesting.
Mhm. And you're a really good storyteller because there was a Saturday where or was it a Sunday? It was a Saturday where we hosted the Brownie Troop, Charleston Brownie Troop. And I'll let you tell the story that absolutely entranced and hooked those little girls.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because that was a story. I forgot about that. That was a project I had to do for third grade. I had to do a family history project for third grade. And I can't, the exact generation back, I can't remember. It's like third, fourth, or fifth, somewhere in there. Great grandma, she went across the plains, and the age group she was, her responsibility and her job, like she crossed the plains, was picking up buffalo chips. So I asked the brownie troop age girls if they knew what buffalo chips were because I knew it would get their attention, and they didn't know. So I was like, "It's buffalo poop," and they all freaked out, and that was the thing they remembered because they would use those chips to as like the start the fire at night to then cook their dinner.
And apparently, because of the staff member who arranged that day, they're still talking about that.
Yeah, it stuck with me since third grade when I first read it. So
And I think the other thing that, besides being a really good storyteller, the other thing that makes you a really good genealogist is you have ancestry from just all over the United States.
Yeah, I have a lot of mine. So I grew up in South Carolina, so that's like where my story starts. But a lot of mine is out west in Utah and Idaho. I have some in Wyoming, but then they're traveling across the states and they all came over in the Northeast, is kind of where it came. I know there's all different points in times when they came over, and then it's all met in Europe with mainly connections in Great Britain and France are like the two main ones that connection from, and like Nova Scotia area.
So I was sharing with the audience while we were getting you back online that James Morgan had done a really amazing job laying the foundation of the reference library in terms of getting the initial books that we got up on the shelves, logging them in logging them in things like Excel spreadsheets. And even though we have how many books would you roughly say that we have at the minute? I know you asked me this, like how many I thought we had.
Yeah, I think we have roughly between 13 to 1400 books is what I'm estimating where we're at right now. And of course, some of those are doubles of some books. So it's not 1300 individual books. We do have some duplicates, but yeah, roughly around there.
hmm And roughly what kind of, I guess if you had to categorize the books, how would you categorize, just broadly speaking, the different kinds of books that we have?
So we have a lot of some like history based books on just like different areas, a lot with African American focus of starting out. When we have, as to be expected for being a Center for Family History, there's a lot of genealogy focused books. We have a lot of how to's. We have a lot of land records, these books with wills and different like guidelines, and then other people's family history books, research they've done that they have published into a book that we have also as resources.
hmm And one of the things I've been doing to try to help you in your task is I've reached out to, I believe, 22 or 23 South Carolina county genealogical societies and historical societies. Um, and, and if there's a specific African American one, I've reached out to them as well to basically ask them if you had to recommend 5 or 6 essential African American focused genealogical or history books for your county, which ones would they be? Kind of sad to say that I have not received a single reply. Not,
Oh,
not one. Um, yeah. So kind of working on that. But what I'm really impressed by is even though our kind of startup reference library is kind of on the modest size, um, we've got some great books in there. Um, really, really amazing books. What are some of your favorites and what really stand out to you?
there's a lot. I know we have a big collection of land records for different Alabama counties and their record books that our the starter director of the center, Tony Carrier, donated that she had. So that's like, and I'm trying to remember the word she said when I talked to her about them. That it's like it's a very unique because like it's hard to find those records if I remember what she said. So it's a very unique thing that we have those. And then I guess the books that pop in my head was when we were doing research for the Today Show. I would go in and look at the North Carolina deed books we had because we had the counties that his North Carolina went to, Craig Melvin's. So I was always looking into those, trying to find the names. And I was like, I'm stuck on the internet. Let me go to my books.
I know I was really excited about the Henry Lawrence papers. Even though we don't have the full set, we have 2/3 of it. And I was really excited to see that one. I think I was telling Donnie I was really excited to see some really good Edgefield County, South Carolina related
Mhm.
books. We will be purchasing more. And just, for the audiences, I guess, knowledge, even though our collection is skewed towards South Carolina, we will slowly be building that out to reflect the African American experience throughout the United States. Um, but it kind of made sense starting with South Carolina, and particularly the areas in and around Charleston.
Mhm.
That's where the museum is based. It's where most of quite a few of the visitors are coming from. I'm also really pleased to say that we have from the South Carolina State Archives microfilm, but those won't be accessible by the public. That's just for the research team. But that does form part of what we have in terms of the reference library.
Yeah,
My other question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm excited to dive into those microfilms once the reference library is live. I'm excited. I'm like itching to get into those.
Yes, and well, the other reason why we have them is we are going to digitize them, but that's probably a project for the latter part of 2025. So we were explaining to the audience we will be doing a soft launch of the reference library in January. So people can actually come into the Center for Family History. There will be tables and chairs set up for them to sit down and to be able to read the books. Um, Talk to us about how that's, if you want to start with libib, probably that's probably a good place to start. If you wouldn't mind explaining what libib is and how people will be able to access it on the site and the information that's available on that.
Yeah, so Libib's a website or an app you can get, and it's just like you can also even use it, get the free version that they offer, and it's just the way you can categorize your library, whether it's books, movies, CDs, kind of anything. So you just kind of have an idea what you have and you can look for. So what we have is it's going to be a website and it's under Libib, but it'll be linked. You can get through it from our center's website in January once it's live. And you have to become a patron of the library. So you just have to make an account with the library and you'll be able to search all the books and different information we have on there. And as we add books into the center, whether it's purchasing them, people donating them, and going through that process, that's really fun. And then that will be updated. So you can check out the book or put it on hold for 48 hours because we don't want someone putting on hold on a book when they're not going to be visiting the museum in 2 weeks. Someone else can read it.
Yes.
So very much you only have 48 hours hold for that book. And then we recommend you reserve the book before coming in because we can't guarantee the book is going to be on that first come first serve basis. So if it's on hold, you can't receive that book. So you'll just come in and either the staff or the volunteers that we have amazing volunteers that you'll just check in with them and they will promote words for you to go sit down at the table and then they will go bring the book and give it to you. And in exchange, we'll be taking a valid ID because the books can't leave the center. So that's our way of making sure we get our books back. We kind of have it because some of them are precious books that are very much not a lot in circulation. So having that, and then you're able to use that book and ask questions with either staff or the volunteers that are there. And then when you're done with the book, it was just that exchange back. You get your ID when you return the book, kind of a system.
Because actually, our reference library is set up slightly differently than what most people would expect. The Center for Family History has both a public space, the open space, and then there's our office. And I think most people would expect the books in the reference library to actually be on the library floor. Well, it's kind of our staff library, which is the area only accessible by staff. That's actually where the books are. So as Whitney was saying, we have some amazing volunteers, some of who are actually retired professional librarians. So having kind of their insight into things has been amazing. We'll be coming into the office and getting the books that people want to be able to read.
Yeah, I kind of like view it as like with like when you go to an archive, you're not going to the back of the archive. They bring the stuff to you at the table. So that's how I always kind of view it. Like it's that kind of setup. It's getting brought to you.
That's true, because I guess think of it as as you were saying, if you go to like the specialist collections, yeah, you just can't you can't rock up to the shelf and just pull it off, and take it to the table and read it. You're right; they do have to be brought to you.
So is that the kind of stuff that you guys will be doing?
Yeah, so we'll just be bringing the books to the people and bringing them back into the office to have an exchange so we can also know, okay, this book on this topic is getting checked out quite a bit of times, so also kind of help be aware of that. So be like, okay, maybe we should order another copy of this book, or okay, let's see what other things revolve around this topic to kind of go in and help build our library. So it's more what kind of people are researching, what the visitors are coming in for. And I think
Mhm.
we're in the unique spot with how we are part of a museum, not complete like separate in a separate building. So we'll have people just coming in to visit the museum and then be like, oh, what's this? And then like also starting off that way to going through and being like, oh, I didn't know, or like they didn't realize, and going in and being able to become, because you can also become patrons of the library there in the center and check out a book when you get there if you didn't prior beforehand, because we know not everyone looks on the website, and even if you do, it's very easy to miss something that's on there
Of
that you
course.
maybe wanted.
Mhm.
So will you also have like, you know how when every time when you watch things like Who Do You Think You Are, and you know all of those different Finding Your Roots, and every time you see people going into the library, they got the white gloves on and the special books and things of that nature. Will you be having? Do you have books like that, that only you can touch with the white gloves and
We
stuff
don't
like
have
that?
any right now in our collection, but I'm not going to say something in the future. We might end up having one like that. And that's just going to be kind of when we get to that hill, we'll kind of figure it out and go over it because we don't at this point in time. But I wouldn't be surprised as we grow that there will be something like that in our reference
Mhm.
library.
Okay.
Because people are slowly beginning to offer donations.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, lady reached beautifully handwritten. I was kind of shocked because the letter was actually handwritten, and
I'm
she
going to
was
keep
offering
the letter.
something like 40 books.
Yeah, there was like
Mm.
40 books on there, and she like hand wrote the letter in beautiful cursive. I'm like, I'm keeping this letter. This is staying in the reference room. I was like, no one does this anymore. And then hand wrote all the books and like the like author form and everything, all 40 of them, saying that she wanted to
Wow.
donate them because her husband passed away and they were his books and she wanted to donate them to the museum. I was like, I want them all. That's what I showed Brian. We were like, yes. After
Well,
we looked,
Shelly did just send a message. She asked, she says, are you looking for any donations of books or reference material?
yes, we are. We do have to be super kind of like choosy and picky with what we do accept because we do have a limited amount of space and we're aware of that. So just emailing us, and there's a form you can fill out that then we'll put it under review and we'll let you know yes or no if we do want to accept that book
Mhm.
for our reference library.
And Whitney's gonna laugh, but me being the meanie that I am, if it's a family history book, as in Andonia, think about that Settles book, that infamous Settles book that all of us keep going on about. Um, if someone don't wants to donate a book like that, where basically it's a lineage book. You have this ancestral couple who had these kids, who married these people, and then had these kids. Those kind of books, all of that information, it has to in the book. It has to be referenced. It has to be referenced. Um,
Mm.
just because I've been burnt so many times by using the books like the Subtles book that just provided names and names of parents of people who never existed. So that is my stipulation for a lineage book is all of the the main information needs to be cited in reference to a document that anyone can basically find online. I know that's onerous, um, but for a limited space, we just want to make sure that we're providing accurate information.
Yeah, I
And
don't
that
find
and
that to
that's
be mean, Brian. I think that that's just accurate information. I think, especially with the experience that we've had with stuff like the Settles book, that the book was just, it was personal, I mean, that book was personal.
yeah,
They wanted to put what they wanted to put in that book, and you could tell by
yeah.
reading it.
Yeah.
So it's nothing wrong with being
Hmm.
accurate. Definitely nothing wrong with that.
That's okay.
And that's
No,
why we're
I have
having
upset a member of the public.
I was gonna say that's why we're having a process and a strict process. You can't just drop off a book and yes, we're accepting it. It has to be very much a process, and we do have saying like we are not accepting these type of books in the form. So
Mhm.
very much aware that these are no goes.
The other thing that we're trying to do with the reference library is make it a meaningful resource and a rich resource, not just for genealogists or family historians, but academics, academic researchers, students, teachers, right, historical writers, historians. Um, and again, trying to finesse that in a finite kind of space, it's going to be a challenge. I'm sure I've got a great team, and I'm sure we will succeed with that. But it's about being aware that multiple audiences and multiple groups of people should find it a useful and important resource to have. And I was going to ask you, Whitney, what are some of the top new skills that you had to learn?
Well, let's see. I've really refreshed and dust off for the cobwebs of the Dewey Decimal System from learning it back in elementary school. How to get deep dive back into that, and
Oh,
there's
wow.
that's the system it was set up in. So I was like, okay, we're gonna keep doing this, keep going on. So very much took my own advice, which I need to do more often. That like very much just ask people because it doesn't in our presentation. I was like, just ask societies, ask for help because the worst thing will happen, you get a no or you don't get an answer. So very much luckily, like Brian and I went and visited the local library and we're just asking a bunch of questions because like I know from a visitor standpoint and a little bit from getting my degree in history and touring archives in these special places on a little setups, but I'm like, this is still not my wheelhouse. So Dewey Decimal was a big one that there's certain numbers now I can kind of rattle off what they are or a book is. I'm like, oh yeah, it's somewhere here, just from getting deep dive. So that
Mhm.
was the main one that I think I ended up having to learn. And also just trying to figure out all the different resources that there are for libraries, all the different websites that are out there. Okay, if we're ordering a big set of books, what website to go to? Like, what's the go to place? What kind of stickers to put on the books to have the Dewey Decimals numbers on? Is it a special sticker? What I knew it was a special sticker, but like what type of sticker? Is it do we need a specific printer for it? Or is it a template that we can just use our regular printer and just have the paper in? So that was just all the kind of like behind the scene things that once I got told, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I have to figure this out, or that makes sense. I just wouldn't have thought of it that was something that it involved.
Mhm. And I have to say that the afternoon that we spent with the Charleston Library, I mean, I really got the sense that they were really chuffed about that. That we kind of made their day because that was just conversations that they hadn't. I wouldn't say that they never had before, but that they probably rarely had.
Yeah. Well, even over Thanksgiving break, I love libraries. I all grew up going to the library. I went to my local library I went to growing up and was like, okay, I have a weird question and was just asking them questions. I was like, okay, what do you do? Just to get a different idea, to have different viewpoints, to be like, okay, this is this and this, to kind of figure things out. Because I will be the first one to tell you, I don't know everything.
And I'm going to say the thing that surprised me was when you were explaining about the Dewey Decimal System to me, and then you kindly forwarded some training documents for me to review. That it's kind of subjective. I always thought that the Dewey Decimal System was hard and fun. You have this book, and it can only have this Dewey Decimal System. Talk about how you kind of finesse those decisions about what number
Yeah.
you actually go with.
So I thought it was very much hard that when I think some of them there are with certain things because it's all based on what like the topic of the book is. Like genealogy, the big genealogy branch is 929. Yeah, 929. So that's like genealogy, but each number you add after that, it's more specific what it is. And like each state has a different number, and each county in that state has a different number and then depending what it is. So I took a lot of like, okay, there has to be a system, right? It's 2023, almost 2024. There has to be a system that I can just put a book in and it'll pop up the number. That doesn't really exist, is what I found out. I was like, oh, dang it. But there are using very much going on. I'm like looking under every single resource I knew that was out there, that there are some websites. I want to say that OCLC, I think is the abbreviation of it. That is one that you can sometimes put in, it will pop up, or even I would go to the Allen County Public Library and they had their Dewey Decimals up there. I was like, sweet. And even noticing there, they have the same book under two different numbers because it's based on the department it was in. Because it would have like genealogy department, and then if it was in a different department, it had a different Dewey Decimal number. So it's all just kind of based on the person who came up with that number of the book, how they view what the overall topic of that book would be and what it would be under. So there's a lot. There's a couple that I had to come up with being like, okay, this is a general. I'm going to be broad on this, and then I'll decide if I want to go very specific at some point.
Sharon Rose said, because Sharon is actually used to be a reference librarian as well, and she said take full advantage of all those numbers after the decimal point to really get the precise geographical location. So she's giving you some advice on that one.
Yeah,
Because
any
she's
of the
definitely
ones
done it.
that were like, this is the state and county, I was like, very specific. I was like, I need this. Like the Alabama ones, I'm trying to remember. I think Alabama is like 976.1. So like very specific going in. Yeah, if they had a designated place location, I was like, I need every single number that will fit on this sticker.
I haven't looked at the Dewey Decimal System in so long that I don't know what I would do. I think I would freak out if I have to go through that again. I
I
I,
think
I don't know.
I was very lucky that in elementary school completely forgot about it until like Dewey Decimal, and I was like, oh yeah, this, and this, and I was like, where did that come from? Like it was lost in my brain. That like in
So wait a
elementary
minute, you're
school,
under 20, you're under 30 and you remember the Dewey, they were still teaching Dewey Decimal with you?
yeah, we went to the library. My librarian taught it to us, and we sit and had to like they like taught us like the process of it on like index cards, and we had to sit and go do it and go around the library and kind of try to find the books.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So like this, like I don't remember all of it, but certain things. I was like, okay, yeah, this, and this. I was like, yeah, it's all certain things and this. But yeah, I think maybe I just got lucky. I'm in that weird
Oh
little area. I
my
got lucky.
goodness. You got lucky, all right.
Mhm. So I guess, well, an audience member mentioned about card catalogs. So unfortunately, due to space restrictions, we will not have them. But it's on my slate for 2025 to kind of find a digital solution to that, and working in partnership with the other kind of Charleston, specifically Charleston libraries, because Charleston was spoiled for huge research libraries and research centers and archives, to kind of collaborate amongst ourselves to see who has what book. So even if we don't have it, we can steer people to where that book or that reference material actually is.
Yes.
But for
WorldCat
if
is a great website for that. You can put in the book, you
yes,
can put your location, and it'll pop up where that the closest library, whether it's a college library or like the county libraries. WorldCat is like my best friend.
Okay. Well, I am monitoring. Like I said, we are new to the LinkedIn Live group, and although they cannot send messages onto our live chat, I did let them know that if they have questions to ask or things like that, we will definitely look at it and send it out to them. Now, although this doesn't have anything quite to do with what it is that you're talking about for IAAM, you are a reference librarian. You may have some resources for them that they can utilize. So one of their questions is what's the best place to find records for people born in Puerto Rico that have moved to the United States?
Ooh. Puerto Rico is a place I haven't really looked into.
Okay. That's okay. It's
Like
good.
that's
It's
interesting.
fine.
I'm like now I need to go look into Puerto Rico. I'm like,
I
wait,
mean,
I
because that's actually a really good question because Puerto Rico is a part of the
yeah,
United States, so it's a great question to ask. But in the same instance, because it's a part of the United States, it's one of the territories. Would it be something different? So that actually allows our audience to maybe answer that question as well. But as you know, as a reference librarian, we have others up here that may can go into something like that, and this will allow them to get into it. This allows our LinkedIn audience to know that it's not just our guests that answer these questions. Sometimes our audience can answer these questions as well. So with that being said, thank you for even thinking about it. And now that you know, I trust me when I say this, she'll probably come back later and say, "Hey, I have that answer," and
I was
she'll post it up here.
Well, again, because I am the director of the center, I've just made a note. Puerto Rico. So,
oh, I
Puerto
was
but
just
that,
Rico.
thinking, I know what I'm doing at work tomorrow. That's what I'm doing for an hour at least.
because the only other books that are outside the continental United States that I can think of that we have are, for obvious reasons, Barbados, because we have an agreement with the Barbadian government, and the links between South Carolina and Barbados.
Yeah, that is something our international resources and having more for international places, whether it is US territories or all the other countries, is building that up. That's like high on my list to also sit and have those kind of start looking into those to start building that area up more.
Okay, thank you.
And because this is rough, I think people, uh, there is a link between genealogy or the kind of genealogical careers and being a reference librarian. What were some of the transferable skills that you think actually helped you make that segue from one to the other?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just research, and that's just my interest. And that's where I go and doing a bunch of research and spending. I was the weird kid. I loved going to the library. I loved the library in college and sitting in there. I was very blessed that I did a research project and we built a digital collection on our university's library page. So we were part of that and researching, and that actually ended up having like a genealogy tied to my ancestor. Was really weird going out doing research that we were researching this area. So just going that behind the scenes, learning that ways, and ended up finding a name I recognized. And I was like, this is my mom's maiden name. I was like, that's weird. And then I like looked at the name again, full name, and I was like, I know this name. I'm like, where do I know this? I was like, I think this is my ancestor. It had been maybe a couple years since I had actually visibly looked at my tree, but I like remembered the name. So I was able to pull it through and I was like, ooh, I can find. So that kind of like, there's a connection here. It's where that connection kind of started. And it's just a lot of just like going through those research and finding out, okay, this is helpful. These are helpful different tools to have, and this thinking like all the different type of documents that we look at as genealogists to be like, okay, these are the kind of documents we need and the different tips and tricks. And I think also just the group of genealogists that we're all very talkative and we will share our research and our ideas with people. So the community as well just kind of like, Brian, you're aware of this. I probably ask you like 50 million questions a day. I'm being like, okay, what do you go for this? Where do you do for this to see if I'm forgetting something? Or if this isn't I don't know that much in this area, the different tools that are there to use to then help other people later on as they come to help kind of prepare myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going to say that I think a skill that really helps you is your attention to detail. And I don't think I appreciate it in terms of being a reference librarian and a genealogist. Well, I always knew this about being a genealogist, but as a reference librarian, there's a lot of detail that you have to pay attention
And go, a blessing of having a little bit of OCD. And I was like, this is it, this is it. And I remember volunteers helping me. She's like, okay, how do you do it? Because she even was like, I know you do it a certain way. How, like, make sure, I want to make sure I do it exactly how you want it done. She goes, because I know you. And I was like, I feel seen.
with. But again,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we're doing the soft launch in January. Because even though, between Whitney and I, and again, the volunteers we have who are retired professional librarians, we know that we haven't thought of everything. And we know that sometimes, as we experience today, technology is not always your friend. So just giving us ourselves that kind of month's grace to kind of put out any fires, fine tune things, tweak things, and yeah, troubleshooting, figuring out how to troubleshoot some things.
Yeah, I think every time I like make the website live and then play it on the end of someone going to the website and seeing how then we will see the analytics and stuff, I'm just like, oh, okay, I need to figure this out. There's this, and just always something different that I'm just like, okay, now I'm onto this set. Now I'm onto this set, an ongoing to do list of all these itty bitty things that just need to be done.
hmm And I'm going to say that actually researching, well, I'm going to take a little step back. One of the questions that Whitney gets asked almost on a weekly basis is she a genealogist?
Yes.
And
The last question.
yeah, sometimes I think it's the youthfulness that kind of throws people. Because you're not the only one. One of our future guests, Darius, he also gets asked that question. Um, and I think and you handled it with a lot of grace on that one. Um, do you think that may also be helpful in terms of the level of advice that we've had from outside the museum?
Yeah, I think it is with certain stuff because I'm very much like listening to people and even like our volunteers and always getting asked like the you genealogist, you do this when I'm talking about it. And in my brain, I'm just like, yes. I'm like, why wouldn't I be if I'm talking about it? Like that doesn't make sense. But and it's like and I've come to realize every time they ask that question, I'll always say, I've been doing it for 12 years, sitting there. But once I say I have a history degree, that's when they're like, oh, okay, now I'll listen to you. I'm just like that like the degree is like kind of what people are looking for, which is also weird, I find in this day and age, that because not everyone goes to school and everyone gets a degree because not everything you need a degree for. And last time I checked, there wasn't a specific bachelor's degree in genealogy.
There isn't a degree in genealogy, and a
Mm,
lot of people don't realize that.
So they're just like, and always like, okay, what makes you different than me that's done it for so long? I'm like, it's this the different ideas and talking with different people that like they'll have different stuff and it's another set of eyes. I always can like with our consultations or even like having a buddy comparing it to you when you write a paper in school. See, that tells I'm young. I've been out of school for 2 years. Papers. Um, you have a peer review. Like you have someone read the paper to sit and like they will catch things that you don't notice because you have blinders on. So just like thinking of different ways and like the more you explain the different reasons on like at least why I do this or the helpful of having someone else helping you or looking at stuff, it tends to
Mhm.
change things. And then even like in those conversations, they say something. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, like the Puerto Rico, or those. I'm just like, oh, and like take a mental note of it. I'm like, okay, this is what we have and need to have.
mhm.
But
The other thing I don't think people appreciate is that you also bring to the role, both genealogical and reference librarian, a depth of understanding of African American research. And because I'll usually shout over my desk to you. It's like, oh, do we have the Newberry County, blacks mentioned in Newberry County deed books? And you always do a little quick search, and you're like, you're always yes or no. And by that I mean, the kind of county level books that would actually have information that African American researchers, and specifically people trying to research enslaved ancestors, would actually need to access in a reference library.
mhm. And I think a lot of it's just like a reason is that this was always my interest and kind of what got me to go into history was my interest was African Americans and the evolution of study, evolution of slavery. So ever since I was little, I remember Gullah Gullah Island was the show I watched all the time as a kid, and I loved that show. And I was like, I
Oh
just want to know
wow.
more. And that's truly like what kind of, I think, started my interest on it. And they actually visited the museum like the first couple weeks we were open, and I was able to meet them the days, and I was like, y'all are basically the reason why I'm here. It was like, your show is what started my interest on wanting to know more about like African American culture and wanting to research them and
Oh,
learning.
did you sing the song?
Oh yes. And the rest of that day after I met them, the song was stuck in my head.
I know it was. I'm sure it was.
I love that.
Oh, I used to do it all the time with my children. We used to watch Gullah Gullah Island all the time.
Yeah, so I think with like having that interest of Gullah culture and then growing up and just having different type of friends from different backgrounds and different cultures,
Yeah.
and I found myself I found myself taking history classes for fun to fill the credit, and I was like, oh, that's my easy class, which I should have made my history major then, but I didn't yet. But like, so going into there, and that's always where I resat and researched, and I wrote on the Bray schools in Virginia. That was my final paper because my professor said about it, and then I just went down the rabbit hole because it was something I hadn't heard of. So that's where, because a lot of the stuff with African Americans are things typically, especially me, I haven't heard of before. And that's where my interest is. I'm like, this is fascinating. And then I'll just spend months finding everything I can about it and just going down those rabbit holes and looking for all the different things. And I can, over time, I've learned a lot of different skills and things to look out for and be like, okay, let me go here, let me go here. And it's just a lot of just also listening to people and just taking it in and just talking to them about stuff and what they use and going off of that and just love my little rabbit holes.
Wow.
And I guess speaking of rabbit holes, I guess what's frustrating for me is there are the parts of South Carolina that I know really well, and I know the books that that we have, and that the additional ones that we need to purchase over the next couple of months. So, places like the old 96th district, all the way down into Barnwell, the private client research that I've done between Georgetown County, Charleston County, Berkeley County, or even over to Williamsburg. But there is that part of South Carolina that I either don't research very often or have never researched, like Fairfield County. I wouldn't even begin to know what the important kind of African American documentation books would even exist for that county, because I've never looked there. That was part of the reason why I was reaching out to so many genealogy and historical societies. Now, maybe books in those counties just haven't been written. Um, hint, hint. Probably next year it's going to be a bit of a bit of a research task for the both of us. Um, but just to make sure that, in terms of South Carolina specifically, and then, like I said, the broader United States, what we have is truly representational in terms of African American researchers and the kind of the reference materials that we need to be able to access.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know if you had a question, Tanya.
No, I didn't. I'm enjoying the conversation, and I'm also really I'm sorry that I'm not asking as many questions as I would normally ask, because I'm learning about I'm really kind of wearing my producer hat today.
Oh,
Somebody sent
okay,
me a
I
message.
understand.
I'm wearing my producer hat today. Someone actually sent me a message at one point telling me fix my face, because I think at one point I kind of frowned up, and I'm looking at I'm just looking at everything with this whole new program, and I do apologize, but I'm very interested in everything that you're doing, and I'm very excited for you because you are so young, and you are, just like really interested in everything that you're doing when it comes to this. I guess one of my I guess if I have to think of one question that I do have for you, and that is, where do you see yourself going further on, like 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself as far as all of this is concerned? Do you see yourself moving forward? Where do you see yourself moving as far as all of this is concerned?
Yeah, I have come to realize with reference libraries, microfilms, and just talking to people, I really love archives and dealing with those old materials and finding those informations and helping people and just like talking to people and just be like giving them ideas where to go look and different stuff. So like archival work and being in that reference area, I have come to really love. And I'm really grateful for one Brian, and because of the new museum and the position I am in at my such a being at really a young age, that like I am finding where one I thrive, but is also aligns with my interests, that like just building an archive and having a bunch of those materials and helping people find, just whether it's not even something they're researching for themselves in their own family history, it's just a topic or something they want to learn more about, and just having people like learn all these new stuff. Because you could ask my family and friends, when I find a topic I find fascinating, I will talk about it forever. That was me for the Bray schools, and then with all the Catilda, like that was all I was talking about. And I just like,
Wow.
everyone needs to know this.
Wow.
And just giving a bunch of like, "Ooh, have you read this book?" Or you need to go look on this site. Like even like coworkers at my old job being like, "You need this," and just like fascinated and wanting to share it all.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
And one thing that I will be gauging in the new top of the new year is whether or not there will be a demand for resources like old, newspaper related websites like Accessible Archives, which is an amazing resource for colonial and early 1800 newspapers, and also newspapers.com. Because, Donnie, as you and I know, a lot of researchers, especially new researchers, don't think to use newspapers
Newspapers.
as
Yeah.
part of the research. And because those subscriptions are not cheap, I'm not going to lie, those subscriptions are not cheap, even for a museum. I want to make sure that I'm spending my department's money wisely. And by wisely, I mean spending it in a way that is going to really benefit the public, purchasing things that the public is going to use. That's the kind of really boring, unsexy part of overseeing a reference library.
And I think we are in the great spot because one, us, we all are researchers and we're big deep in it. We know all the different, we will like, we tell you, I think, we tell you all the time, we go, "Oh, we want this, we want this." Like, these are the things we want, these are the things we need to sit and find more information about, that like it is helpful in a way that like, okay, these are big ones to go for. And yeah, newspapers are ones that even I sometimes forget about them. That I'm just like, oh yeah, we go look in newspapers, and I bring it up all the time. And just looking like the area as a whole, because you can pull a lot from newspapers about like events that happen that kind of help build the person of like maybe what they saw or they interacted with. But yeah, so we do have some newspapers in our collection. Not a lot, but we have some.
Mhm. Absolutely. And there's even some fun because I didn't know that arts and crafts could actually be part of being a librarian.
It's a great way to get out your frustrations. That's sometimes I'm like, okay, my computer, I'm done. I'm gonna go do my stickers.
But what would you learned how to make a special kind of box?
Oh yeah, I actually 2 weeks ago, I believe, I made an archival box. It was a workshop that was happening that Brian so Gracie was like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yes, I want to go." So this it's a box to help preserve the books. So it's perfectly dimensioned to the book you measure, and you make that archival box for the book to live in to help preserve it. So that is when we do have those books that are like typically the gloves and those very precious ones, or like the pages are falling out. I can then now do have that skill where I can make those books, and that's just how it will stay on the shelf and it doesn't leave that book. And it will lay out flat so it can stay in that book. And depending also on how the spine is, that means we need the little foam holders that it rests in to then help protect the book even more as well.
Mhm. So all of those good things, you know, being like an inventory of books and kind of assessing the state that they're in. That's all kinds of stuff I never would have never considered. Even how you positioned them on the shelf. I remember you and the volunteer were having a conversation. Do you push them all the way in the back? Do you have them a little bit towards the front? I thought I lost you there for a minute.
I
Um,
think she can't hear. Can you hear? Yeah, I think we lost her. Cause there, yeah, I let me go to the private chat, see if she can hear.
well, we did pretty good coming to the closing minutes.
Yeah, we are. So there are some questions. Brian, send her a private chat.
Yeah, I will.
Um, there are some questions in here about consultations, and yes, they do offer consultations at the library. Genealogy Adventures Researching Service also offers consultations as well. Um, you can contact both of us, both the Genealogy Adventures, and you can also go to IAAM. I do not have the IAAM email address, but you can go to their. They have a Facebook page, and you can go to their Facebook page, and you can definitely contact them at their Facebook page to be able to do that. For Genealogy Adventures, if you want a consultation with them, you can send us an email at this particular email address, and we can talk to you and find out more about what you want to know. Yeah, we just lost her. She just dropped. Um, and find out more about what you want to know. But we are so excited that she was able to be on the show. I hope she can get back on.
I just sent her a text.
Yeah. And Sharon just gave a good idea, Brian, about a book repair workshop would be a good
Oh,
training too.
hmm.
Um, so I just want to thank everybody though for being on the show. We are doing like a IAAM series for this last part because we're going to be talking to all IAAM people for this last the closing of this year. And then you, as you guys know, we kind of shut down after what, right, like the week before Christmas, and then we don't start back up again until February. And well, there she is.
Technology.
And we don't start back up again until Black History Month. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you, Whitney, for joining us because we actually are getting ready to close it, shut it down. But they did ask about consultations, and we did let them know that consultations are provided through you guys for different things. I don't know if there's any consultations for reference library, but there are some consultations that are provided. Am I correct?
You are correct. So again, thank you so much, Whitney. It's been a pleasure sharing our journey. Kind of on the eve of launching a reference library. And if I remember correctly, next week is Grant Me Show.
I think so.
Am I right with that, Danya?
I think so. I think it's Grant.
Okay,
Darius is the last one.
that's right. So next week we're going to be joined by a gentleman called Grant Michaud, who has been doing amazing work documenting African American cemeteries across South Carolina. And he's going to be talking about that project. And he's not only just working with them; he is GPSing their location, advocating for a lot of them to have preservation orders put on them. Um, and working with the public so much so now that the public is actually getting in contact with us,
That's
telling that they have
awesome.
African American burials. So looking forward to picking up that conversation next week. Whitney, thank you so much for spending this hour with us.
Yes,
We
don't hang
overcame
up.
we overcame those technical gremlins. And for everyone who spent the last hour with us, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, no matter how you tune in or where you're tuning in, um, and sharing this conversation with us.
So I'm Danya,
I'm Brian.
and you guys have a great, great Sunday.
See you
Yeah.
next week.
Bye bye.